As one of the older evolutions of the Carnifex, the Screamer Killer was christened by terrified Imperial troops for the distinctive howl it emits from its bioplasmic blasts. This creature will always be feared. In this video, we'll be painting the colossal Tyrannid Screamer Killer in the colours of High Fleet Leviathan to battle ready. Then we'll be adding a few extra techniques to take your model to the next level. If you're new to painting, you can check out the Citadel Colour Painting Essentials videos to learn more about paints and techniques. The paints we'll be using are on the screen right now. Remember that we're painting to match the box art, but you can paint your models however you like. Any additional equipment that would be used is also on the screen, but feel free to use whatever brushes you're most comfortable with. And if you don't have mediums, you can swap these out with water instead. The first thing we need to do is undercoat the model, and for this colour scheme we've used Wraithbone. It's a nice warm undercoat that will get us ready for the contrast colours we'll be using. We'll start by applying a base coat of Wraithbone over our model. This just gives us an overall finish that will match the pot in case we need to tidy up any mistakes later on, as the spray has a slightly different finish. You'll only need one thin coat to fully cover, so don't worry about being neat at this stage. Now we'll add a thinned down layer of Magos Purple. We'll combine 2 parts Contrast Medium to 1 part Magos Purple. This gives us a great colour to settle into those recesses, but not overwhelm the upper areas of the skin. We'll be applying this all over to get into every recess and under those carapace edges, so don't worry about being neat at this stage. Just make sure that the contrast doesn't pull too heavily, as we want a nice light pinky purple tone to the skin. After it's dry, if you need to, you can reapply Wraithbone to any areas that are larger and smoother to tidy up any heavy contrast. Next we can add a light dry brush of Corax White over the colours we've already painted. We are doing this now so it can be messy before we paint any of the smaller details. By using circular motions, we can get the raised points covered without being too heavy-handed. This is a subtle effect, so if you want some definition, you can apply a second dry brush. Just don't apply too much pressure or we can end up with a lumpy, unwanted texture. Next we'll use Naggaroth Knight for the carapace armour. Remember to thin down this paint slightly as it's a base paint, and apply multiple thin layers to build up a solid colour. So just take your time, as if we make mistakes here now, it takes more time to tidy up. So use a smaller brush if you think you might smudge paint onto the skin. And if you want to add an extra little detail, we'll take 1 part Naggaroth Knight and 3 parts Lamia Medium to add some colour to the ends of those arms. We'll build up that colour slowly by using multiple layers towards the bottom of the arms, near the talons to make them darker, adding a slight gradient. With the carapace painted, we can move on to Abaddon Black for the claws, hooves and talons. You can also darken down the eye sockets with this colour as well. Just like with Naggaroth Knight, we want to thin down our paint and apply it in the same way. You can also paint the insides of any open mouths and teeth to help define that area for some paints later on. Even by adding these few paints, we've already got some great definition to our Screamer Killer. Now we'll add some Bugman's Glow to the mouth, tongue and joints. We're just going to thin this down and use a small layer brush so we can get into those small details without making a mess. If you do make a mess, you can use the previous steps to tidy up. Next we'll paint the teeth with Corax White using a small layer brush. By picking out the teeth, it will help them stand back out from that black base coat, finishing off a lot of face detail with little work. By using Abaddon Black earlier, it really helped the Corax White teeth stand out even more, making our model look extra menacing. Now we'll paint those eyes with Flashkit's Yellow. By using a small airbrush, we can get into those small areas and avoid getting the yellow on the skin and the carapace. Just keep your brush pointed so you can get into those small beady eyes and add a few layers to build up the colour. Then we'll apply Mechanicus Standard Grey to the rock under the hoof, ready for any basing you wish to do later on. Just a few thin coats will give us enough coverage we need, and this will be painted really quickly as it's so small compared to its massive hoof. Your Screamer Killer is now battle ready. You can stop here, or you can add these extra cool steps to take your model to the next level. Now we'll add a bit of definition to that carapace armour with an easy highlight of Slaanesh Grey. We can do this by thinning the paint and applying it in small choppy lines around the edge of the carapace plates. You can see it gives more of a natural highlight than normal, giving this chipped chitinous effect. Just make sure that you use the smallest brush you have and keep that paint flowing on the palette. After that first highlight is dry, we'll add some simple highlights to the claws and hooves with Thunderhawk Blue. We don't need to highlight every edge or detail, so we'll pick out the most prominent or visible. By thinning your paint and rolling the brush on the palette, we can control the amount of paint we apply to these models. And with that highlight done, we're on to our very last stage. To give some colour to those black talons and head spikes, we'll be using corn red in two ways. First, we'll highlight the head spikes by using a small layer brush. Then we'll thin it down, 1 part corn red to 2 parts Lamia medium, and apply it into those recesses of the claws, so it gives a slightly stained bloody effect to them. And there we are, your Tyrannid Screamer Killer is finished, and ready to rush into the fray, talons bared and shell shocking its prey. You can see that our model is based in Armageddon Dust, and if you'd like to learn more about technical paints, you can check out our video all about them. For more tutorials, tips and tricks, check out citadelcolor.com or head to your local Warhammer store where our amazing staff will be happy to help you. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video and we'll see you next time. Bye bye!